He's been a professional trader for nearly 4 decades.
Some of you may know me as a New York Stock Exchange institutional flow broker, and some of you may know me as a CNBC television commentator.
Kenny Polcari is now the host of Weiss Ratings' weekly podcast.
This is the Weiss Investor.
Tell us about the podcast and the shape that they often take.
It is a podcast based around financial services, but it is not a trading podcast. I'm buying this, I'm selling that, I'm doing this. It's much broader. I've interviewed Sue Herrera from CNBC, Morgan Brennan from CNBC as women financial journalists and their journey and how they got there.
So many millennials did not partake and have not partaken until recently in capital markets.
He's discussed the explosion of NFTs as a new asset class with Weiss crypto analyst Joel Kruger, along with Bitcoin's growing mainstream adoption.
The fact that he's accepting Bitcoin means there's a success in Bitcoin just as a liquidity tool, right?
1,000%.
And he's interviewed podcast host and certified financial planner Malcolm Etheridge for his perspective.
Having the opportunity to come into a firm that is small enough that I've got the ability to make decisions pretty quickly is very important to me.
It's because it's an entrepreneurial shop.
What I think is really interesting about talking to some of these people is to hear, listen, they're human beings and they also have a story, and everyone's story is different on how they ended up here and opportunities that they had and decisions they made that drove them here.
Kenny has his own story and how he ended up in finance.
When I was in college, I was in school in Washington, D.C. because I thought I wanted to be a politician or lobbyist and ultimately the president of the United States. Thank God that didn't happen.
In the summer of 1980, he had the chance to be on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange.
Well, it changed the course of my life, especially during the 80s and 90s when there were 5,500 type A personalities that ran around the room screaming and yelling every day. It was the most electrifying place in the world. And it fed right into my personality.
Today, you can catch Kenny's spirited stock market analysis across social media.
For those of us that have lived through the last wage price inflation spiral, we understand the implications.
In the new year, the Fed will likely speed up its tapering of asset purchases, and many project interest rates could be raised several times to deal with high inflation. You've been talking a lot about the turbulence you see in 2022.
I think you're going to see the Fed come out and have to be more aggressive in terms of the talk of interest rate increases, the talk of potentially stopping tapering, not tapering it down, but stopping it. I think we've borrowed on future performance. And so I think the correction is going to come in January, February.
So how should investors prepare?
It depends on who you are as an investor. There are day trader types that are absolutely chomping at the bit for it to be more volatile because that's how they make money. I'm an investor, long-term investor. I don't day trade my accounts. I buy stuff that I like, that has a good thesis, good earnings calls, good outlook, good guidance, and I put them in my portfolio. For instance, I own Apple and Microsoft are two names in my portfolio. I'm not selling my Apple and Microsoft. I don't care if the market crashes 15%. I'll buy more Apple and Microsoft. Why? Because the thesis in Apple and Microsoft hasn't changed. Just because the market corrects, because there's going to be a change of policy, doesn't mean that they've destroyed the Apple story or the Microsoft story.
What are some investments that are appealing to you in this climate?
I'm long now on the SH ETF, which is the ProShares S&P 500 short trade. You're buying it because you're expecting the market to go down. So as the market goes down, that ETF will actually increase in value and it will blunt and offset the decrease of the individual names that I own.
He's a fan of names that may not be flashy, but are effective.
Utilities have now taken a new role in my portfolio. Consumer staples, which are things that you need. You need toothpaste and mouthwash and soap and toilet paper. All the things you need, you should add to your portfolio. So it's Kellogg, it's Procter & Gamble, it's Johnson & Johnson for two reasons. They're boring. They're big Americana market cap stocks. But guess what? Boring is good in a turbulent environment, or what you expect to be a turbulent environment. I own Ford. Guess what? I'm up 120% in my Ford.
He's all for value stocks in 2022.
Buy the stuff that's solid, that's good, that is going to help you sleep at night. And for me, owning JP Morgan and Bank America lets me sleep at night.
Aside from finance,
Today, we're going to make one of my favorite dishes. It's a rigatoni and a tomato sweet sausage cream sauce.
Kenny is also passionate about food. So how'd you get into cooking? How did this love of food and cooking form?
I'm the middle of 5 kids from a Boston Italian family. Let's just start with that. And both grandmothers and my mother, I would just watch because I cook by feel. When I give you my recipes, I give you the ingredients. but I don't say to you, use a quarter tablespoon of pepper and a half a. I don't do that. I just go around and I taste.
So we've got our onions, we've got the garlic. Absolutely, you need the white wine.
When you cook for somebody and you invite them into your personal space, people really appreciate that intimacy and that experience, especially if you do it well.
So here's to serving up good food and wise investments in the new year. Financial analyst Kenny Polcari, great speaking with you. Happy New Year, my friend.
And thank you, and Happy New Year to you.